Prince Louie was gone as the world blinked. No more showing up at school, waving from the royal balcony, or smiling naively for the cameras. The youngest light in the monarchy just vanished overnight, and only now the palace verified the reason. However, that line hides a long history of rumors, secret papers, and one horrible choice that altered the course of history, so their remarks only convey half the story. To ensure that you don't miss any updates, please subscribe before we delve deeper into what this actually means for the royal family. Rumors circulated among royal viewing groups for weeks. It appeared to be a straightforward mistake at first. A sick child staying at home, a young nurse being left out of the circus of the media, perhaps. However, when incident after incident occurred, while Prince Louie was noticeably missing, those murmurs became pressing inquiries. The little prince was very well liked and lively. What had made him leave the public stage? The official engagements, those highly symbolic and carefully planned ceremonial events, followed. Behind his father, Prince George stood tall, as composed as ever. Princess Charlotte smiled royally. The position that was formerly occupied by Prince Louie is currently empty, but no images, no description, not even a brief reference. When the Wales family was supposed to be represented at 3 significant royal events, but only 4 members showed up, anxiety gave way to uncertainty. A Remembering Sunday celebration and a colour-changing ceremony will take place after the Commonwealth Day service. Prince Louie never showed up. Every time the rumours grew more intense, the palace said nothing. The British public, who were able to see past the royal facade, sensed something was wrong. It was deafening to a monarchy so focused on image. Was this a medical issue, an internal choice, a covert Welsh uprising, or something much more serious? In the beginning, the absence felt more like hiding than discretion. The moment that caught everyone off guard then arrived. The stillness of the castle was broken just a minute ago, as news erupted on TVS all across the world. The remark was clinical, succinct, and possibly overly cautious. A period of protected time away from public life was discussed, along with a decision taken in the young prince's best interests. Those who are familiar with the inner workings of the royal apparatus, however, found that statement to be unsettling. Here, it was code. It was not just privacy that was an issue. This concerned a situation that had gone horribly wrong, because beneath the well-crafted words was a clear undercurrent, something urgent, something dreadful. Not only was the absence of Prince Louie acknowledged by the palace, it was proof that the choice to keep him hidden was final. It was the outcome of something more significant, concealed, and uncontrollable. If history has taught us anything, it's that the palace always has a good reason to keep quiet. A royal child has previously been kept out of the spotlight. There have been horrible results in the past. It is seldom simple to bring a child back once they have vanished into the vast darkness behind the crown. But in order to comprehend the significance of this absence, we need to go back to the initial indications that there was a grave problem in the royal corridors. It had all been caught on camera, but nobody listened. When Prince Louie was last seen on that famous balcony with his family, his body language was more expressive than his words. The unexpected discovery from the palace has given those lost minutes a horrible new meaning. It appeared to be just another party at first. With their flawless smiles, the royal family was clearly seen, waving to the eager throng. One ordinary, unimpressive individual, however, stood out. Normally gregarious and full of erratic charm, Prince Louie was unusually motionless. He still had his hands clasped, which is a common source of infectious mischief. He had an expressionless, almost practiced face. In frame after frame, the timidity that at first seemed to be childishness is revealed to be something deeper that was subtly begging for attention. The movie is then examined by a renowned specialist in child behavior. Many people were astounded by her discoveries. According to her, Prince Louie displayed stiff posture, emotional retreat, averted eye contact, and wriggling that is more indicative of interior distress than of fun restlessness. She saw how he leaned away from the audience in silence, and how his shoulders tensed up whenever there was a cheer from below. It wasn't a kid having fun doing these things. They were the unspoken signs that a person was having trouble keeping up a relationship. Catherine followed. The hint of stress in her graceful grin was invisible to most people. However, when I rewatched it, I became aware of one thing, an almost instantaneous gaze. She looked at her child anxiously rather than with pride. Subtle but noticeable. A mother may check in out of concern that something might go wrong other than for solace, and her facade slipped in that brief look. What a strange signal. Prince William moved slightly during the song, looking around the audience before focusing on one of his senior assistants, who was silently standing behind the family. He sent the assistant back into the shadows with a single, forceful nod. It is hard to overlook the implications in retrospect, even though nobody noticed at the time. Was there a prearranged cue, an unwritten directive to stop Prince Lou's visits after that day? Prince William has allegedly taken matters into his own hands in the past to keep his kids safe. There's also what the media choose not to publish. Strict guidelines were issued to select photographers who subsequently acknowledged in confidence that they had been sworn to royal protocol. No lingering lenses, no solo shots, no close-ups of Prince Louie. One even reported that just hours prior to the event, they received a vague request for an embargo, a directive that, at the moment, confused them. Suddenly, however, it aligns flawlessly with a piece that we were unconsciously putting together. There was more to that last balcony appearance than a mere regal custom. It was the kind of departure that was planned with looks, silence, and quiet withdrawal rather than words. The result was predicted by the palace. The public was allowed to clap for a little while, which actually signaled the start of a fading event, even though the family knew. Within the palace, however, a storm was subtly escalating out of control, and the signs continued outside the balcony. She attempted to protect him from the crown itself, from pressure, from the procedures. Once seen as the monarchy's serene core, Catherine turned into its fiercest defender. And behind the immaculate walls of the palace, she pleaded for one thing. Behind the palace walls, where tradition controls even the smallest rumors, let him pass. They were telling another tale, an unspoken conflict between a mother and a machine that is too strong and designed to tolerate deviation. It started softly. The confidential, uncensored letters, written by hand to King Charles and a few high-ranking officials, were full of the kind of worrying that only a mother could express. Catherine begged for her son to be saved. She didn't make an effort to impress anyone. She begged for restraint from the never-ending program that was gradually harming her child, as well as patience and compassion. In those letters, Catherine described how Prince Louis's unexpected and unjustified tears would never be captured on a news tape. Emotional changes at home can be seen in his withdrawal into seclusion and in his one fearless laugh, which turns into nervous mumbling and hushed music inquiries. She described how he rejected royal teachers, how he started to hide when palace employees paid him a visit, and how he winced at the sound of camera shutters. It was an assistant's request rather than a tantrum. But while seeing her son's internal collapse, Catherine had to deal with the constraining contradiction of her stance. She was a potential queen consort in addition to being a mother. Her acts had political ramifications. Every request was examined, and as her need increased, the Resistance Palace specialists cautioned her that firing Prince Louis would cause panic, headlines, and rumors. They preferred quiet. Control was what they promoted. Catherine was not considering the monarchy when they begged, "Preserve the image." Her child was in her thoughts. She was unable to control her psychological conflict. Apparently, she repeatedly refused to go to events until Prince Lou's situation was resolved. Senior employees claim that she changed from being polite and composed to tense and uncompromising. After someone talked about dealing with the Prince Louis problem, one of the assistants remembered Catherine a planning meeting. She wrote again the following day. The request was not enough this time. An ultimatum was given. Everything reached a breaking point when Prince Louis refused to leave his chamber to join his siblings for a formal unveiling. Cajoling didn't work. He didn't feel comforted. It had scared Catherine to death. Catherine didn't show up that day and drew the line when the palace demanded a last-minute appearance, as she disregarded the firm's calendar for the first time since becoming a member of the royal family. Horror echoed through the palace corridors. However, the organization was not persuaded. Emotional divisions had no place in protocol, which required stability. Catherine, however, was not done fighting. The sound of a storm building inside of her was her public stillness. In the royal image designer's war rooms, her words remained unnoticed. However, someone else had started to pay attention. This person was closer to the throne and far more dangerous when agitated. It wasn't just Catherine, though, who sensed danger. Prince William also started to wonder if a centuries-old tradition was sacrificing the future of his family. It was his destiny to reign. However, all changed when Prince William, the stoic heir, realized how the crown was harming his child and was about to lose it in private. He made some really terrible remarks in those now public meeting notes. It took place behind closed doors at Clarence's house, a never-before-seen gathering that many attendees would later describe as the most furious family dispute since the Diana era. Queen Camilla was seated on either side of King Charles, who filled the center of the room. Prince William was cold, silent, and late, with a folder in his hand. He had long shunned the items in that folder. Prince Louie's doctor's certified warning, letters, reports, and Catherine's heartfelt testimony were all incriminating. A conversation soon devolved into something far more explosive. Initially, Prince William struggled to remain calm. The palace's opposition to reform, Catherine's interests, and his son's seeming emotional decline all worried him. However, according to one insider, Prince William became agitated when Queen Camilla interjected and asked if Prince Louie was just going through a sensitive period. The future king, a man trained to lie, got up, slammed the folder shut, and said, "He's not your puppet." King Charles reportedly attempted to convince him that they were all working for Prince Louie's advantage, but there was silence in the room. However, Prince William's voice faltered with indignation when he cited an internal memo he had received from one of Queen Camilla's secretaries, accusing the royal apparatus, especially her entourage, of using Prince Louie's publicity to gain public favor. To increase support amongst generations, he suggested a family-friendly performance featuring Prince Louie. In addition to being dangerous, it was also manipulative. The disagreement intensified. In an effort to reprimand the group, a senior royal advisor in attendance threatened to create a media void if they deviated from their scheduled commitments. Prince William turned to face him when they replied, "Then let them speculate." King Charles was taken aback by the declaration. "I would rather they go after shadows than destroy my son," as he had never witnessed his son so prepared and determined to reject the lessons he had been taught. Then the unimaginable. Instead of being enraged, Prince William made the threat with icy determination. Prince Louie and Catherine would contemplate taking a permanent leave of absence from royal duties if the palace did not comply, and Prince Louie was not immediately barred from any further public appearances. Everything was altered by a single document hidden in a locked file at a London private clinic. It was not intended for this report to exit the room, but it did. The royal family was stunned to learn about Prince Louie, and they were forced to make a decision that no parent should ever have to make. There was no hoopla or warning indications, and the file was delivered discreetly. One letter was passed from doctor to doctor, and then surreptitiously forwarded to a royal medical liaison. It contained the findings of a private assessment conducted weeks prior. Catherine, anxious to find out the truth about her child, had discreetly agreed. In addition to worrying his parents, Prince Louie's altered behavior had started to interfere with his everyday routine. There were moments when he seemed distant, even to those closest to him, and he had both silent withdrawals and dramatic outbursts. Catherine was unprepared for what she read. Despite her fear of what the results would show, the outcome of the investigation was both disturbing and enlightening. Researchers found signs of a unique neurological weakness. It was bearable, but being in high-stress settings was making it much worse, especially when there were cameras, crowds, and royal rituals. This situation could not be disregarded. Long-term psychological damage could result from continuous public exposure, said the physician. It was a simple answer. When the palace doors close and the official statements become well-crafted words, the truth about this occurrence still remains unfinished. Despite the titles, ceremonies, and centuries-old traditions, a family still has to make decisions that no parent should ever have to deal with. There is a small child standing in the center of it all, and his silence has suddenly become louder than any royal declaration. Is this choice really protecting a child from a system that demands perfection? Or is there a deeper story hidden behind the palace's walls that people might never find out? Internal betrayals, classified medical reports, and a mysterious prophecy from decades ago are just a few of the puzzle pieces that leave more questions than answers. One thing is certain, though. When Prince Louis stepped out of the spotlight, something inside the monarchy itself altered. Whether this disappearance was a protective measure or the beginning of a much larger, as yet untold story is perhaps the most persistent question. This is because when a tradition-based institution is compelled to bend for the benefit of a kid, it demonstrates how fragile even the strongest crowns can be. However, we'd want to hear from you right now. In your opinion, did the palace truly act in Prince Louis's best interests, or is the royal family still concealing something from the public? In your opinion, please leave a remark below with your thoughts. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so that you never miss the next revelation. If you want in-depth analyses of stories that aren't included in the media, royal drama, and secret mysteries, we appreciate your time and hope to see you in the next video.